This is an update video on the Horde crypto project. I've done several videos on Horde in the past. In this video, again, we are going to look at the data. We are going to look at the blockchain, underlying hidden data, so to speak, to find out how stable is the system right now. I do assume that you already have a basic understanding how the overall project works, right? The idea is you buy in with an initial investment. So for the standard plots, that's 10 tokens, and you get a reward of 0.1 tokens per day for a limited period of time. So that's 300 days. Your break-even point is roughly 110 days, right? Because you also have a selling tax of 10%. If this was all too fast for you, then I would recommend you first watch the very first video on Horde on this channel, because this basically explains the whole tokenomics around this. So this video is simply just an update. The project rises and falls with something called the Liquidity Manager. So the important unique selling point of Horde is the price peg, or the price stabilization mechanism, right? This here is the Horde token, and it never trades below $99, right? It's always getting supported over here. And why does this price never fall lower? It's because of a algorithm that buys up the price whenever there's too much selling pressure. So you need capital to buy anything up, right? Where does this capital come from? It comes from the selling tax. It also comes from an initial 20% that's being taken once you set up such a plot. So there are different revenue streams, but in the end, the idea still is you put money in and you hope that enough people will come after you that also pay money in so that you can recoup your investment. So it's literally a system that sends money from new investors to old investors. And thus, it's very, very important for me to point out over here that I myself also own 2 plots in this system, right? So overall, there are 29,000 plots. I own 2 of them. And whoever now invests into Horde is indirectly or directly, however you want to see it, contributing to my payouts. I already have broken even over here. So be aware, there might be some kind of conflict of interest here, obviously. That being said, I do like to stay as objective as possible on this channel. And so we are going to look at just the raw data, and we are going to look at this liquidity manager balance. So we are going to look at how is the balance of the wallet developing over time that's supporting this price. Is this going up because there's enough demand, or is this actually going down? Because if that liquidity manager wallet would hit 0 at some point, there wouldn't be enough money left anymore to support this price, right? And when the price of the token isn't pegged anymore to this range, when this suddenly goes south, then we've basically lost all confidence, and then everybody that invested in that project is basically not going to get any significant money out of this anymore. So that's the important point here. You're speculating on new people coming after you and paying your returns, basically. And by looking at the balance development of the liquidity manager wallet, we can then find out, is currently this scheme growing quickly enough, or is it already on the decline? So let's first of all look at the number of Horde token holders, which seems to be growing relatively constantly, right? This starts in March of this year. This is when the project launched. And we do see a few dips. That's maybe when some plots had been created or when everything has been sold off, but in general, a relatively constant growth. Now, what's also constantly growing, and it's growing pretty much exponentially, are the payouts, because with each plot, right, with each traditional plot, 0.1 tokens get paid out every day. And since the number of total plots here is increasing every day, right, with each new investment, the daily payouts are also increasing. So what's important here is to find a balance between the payouts and the inflows, right? When the inflows aren't strong enough, then the ever-rising payouts will become a problem at some point. Now, have we already seen this point of saturation? Have we already seen the inflows slowing down sufficiently to make this system unstable? What you see over here is a comparison. So in blue, this very small line over here, this is the daily issuance. So it's simply this chart over here, just plotted on a different scale, right? This line here is the same as the chart we looked here before. Now, the line in orange is the liquidity manager balance. So this is how much money is currently in the liquidity manager wallet to support the price. We can see this is actually going up. So that's good. If this was to go down, we would see more outflows out of the system than inflows. But especially since beginning of the month, or even a bit before that, right? Since the 30th of August or so, this is rising really, really quickly. So there is quite a bit of confidence right now that Horde might survive for more than 110 days for the break-even point, right? Otherwise, people wouldn't be investing. Now, the problem with just this simple chart is we can't really take this liquidity manager balance, right, of several million, so 2.4 million or so it is now. We can't just take it by the dollar amount. We have to take this in relation to the payouts, right? Because what does it help us if we've got a liquidity manager wallet that's somewhat growing, but when the payouts are also growing very quickly, then maybe we only have, say, 1 day of payouts in the liquidity manager. So we actually need to measure this not in dollars, but in daily issuance. So I've taken this line over here, the liquidity manager balance, and I have divided this by the daily issuance. And when you do this, then you come to that chart. So we launched with roughly 30 days of issuance in the liquidity manager. Now we are at around 7 or 8 days. Okay. So this chart, in my opinion, is the best representation of how stable the system is. It was more stable in the early days. Then the outflows exceeded the inflows. At least the liquidity manager balance wasn't growing percentage-wise as quickly as the daily issuance. But now, since beginning of the month, right? Since beginning of September, this is actually shifting around. So the increase isn't massive, right? But it is existing. We are currently, at least since beginning of the month, definitely growing quickly enough for the system to survive. So if it simply continues to grow at this current rate, then it's not going to break down. But what's important here, and this is the final critical thing that I can't answer. That's why I can't give advice here whether or not to buy or not. The critical question is, what's the saturation point of all of this, right? Because any system has to stop growing at some point. It can't grow at an infinite rate forever. So the market at some point will be saturated. There won't be new investors that are still interested in this. And at that point, the growth of the daily issuance might outpace the growth of the liquidity manager. But right now, this seems to be relatively healthy, right? You need 110 days, so that's roughly 3 points here on this graph on the x-axis. If we simply continue going this way for another 3 months, then it's likely that you're going to be break even. Now, when I first invested, let's see if I can still find this. Yeah, I was at plot number 6,000. I think I was break even when we hit roughly 20,000 or so. So the system had to roughly triple in order for me to get break even. Now at the same time, right, in relative growth, like the liquidity manager measured in daily payouts, it went down slightly, right? It wasn't 100% flat, but probably if you're investing today, you would still have to calculate with something similar. So if you expect that the system can grow up to 90,000 plots or so, then this is a bet with positive expected value. If you think that the growth will already stop at, say, 45,000 or so, then you should definitely not get into this. The only thing that this graph here is showing that since beginning of the month, there is a lot of interest and the current growth is strong enough. This is not yet a system that has flipped around and that has already reached the saturation point. So that's important to notice here. This is not something like strong block where the growth is already slowing down and you're now just part of the return of old investors. And it's unlikely that momentum will ever shift up again. Here in this project, momentum is currently bullish. It's bullish enough to sustain itself in case this simply just continues like this. But as said, right, I am biased. I already broke even. I've got my investment here. If you buy, especially after this video, money that flows in from your pocket will first go partially into my pocket. So be aware of this. You're hoping that more money will come after you. More people will come after you. That's why you would get in. I simply like to look at the data, and I hope that this video at least gave you more information than what you might have seen in other videos. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to subscribe because I publish videos regularly. And there's also a premium membership where I share what I currently invest in. There's also daily market updates around Bitcoin and Ethereum, a chat where you can ask me anything. So the link is thebitcoinstrategy.com. More information is also in this video over here. Hope to see you in that video, and thanks for watching this one. Bye-bye.